Good day, everybody. Wolf Driver coming to you live with Lola the Husky. This is my eldest Husky right now. She's about 7.5 years old, and actually she's in the studio with me today because we're going to the vet after because she gets her yearly shots and she gets her biannual checkup. As they get older, she's considered a senior because she's close to 8 years old. I think at 8 years old, they consider Huskies seniors. And she's going to be loving on me a lot because she likes being with Dad. So when they say when they're seniors or when they're athletic like I do, it's a good idea to get them checked out twice a year. Now, keep in mind, she is more of a couch potato than she is an athlete, but she is an athlete. Almost all Huskies are an athlete. Even if you think your Husky's a couch potato, there's a lot of athletic ability to them inside. We just got to bring it out sometimes. And if we let them be too much of a couch potato, they lay around and they get fat. Basically, they put on too much weight. So what happens is usually, in my experience, when they get spayed, when they get neutered, males and females, they don't have that. They lose some of that competitive edge. Some of them, not all of them, but more likely than not, some of them will. And that makes it, she's just looking for something to do. That makes it harder to entice them and good girl, and to engage them. So that's why I bring to you pretty much everything I do, because I lead a really active lifestyle with the Huskies. And it's hard for people to do that. I know with working schedules and with all the hustle and bustle going on in the world. She's hitting off my knee brace. She's having a good time. So my ideas are kind of like ways of being really active and adventurous with any dog, but Huskies in particular, and being able to keep them entertained without having to be a full-time musher. So I'm going to move this a little here. So she's trying to find a comfort zone. Come on, though. And I think she wants to talk. You know, Huskies are talkers. So to actually find ways to bond with them and ways to do everything you can in life with them, because they live short lives, unfortunately, compared to humans. So before you know it, they're puppies sometimes we get them as, and then they're 5 years old, and then they're 10 years old. And, Huskies are usually a range of 11 to 13, they say, I believe. I've been fortunate enough to have a few along the way, 15-year-old Huskies, still working them. And when I say working them, I mean still getting them exercise. So just a slight bit of work, more of the adventure and adventurous and exercise lifestyle. So in the background playing or wherever you're watching this, you'll see yesterday's activity. That's just from yesterday. And this is one of the coolest bikes that I've invented for the dogs. And I know you're going to say, Wolf Driver, why do you have so many bikes? My wife says that. And the reason being is because I'm always about, stay up here, good girl. I'm always about adventuring in so many different ways, challenging myself and challenging the Huskies. So the Huskies are a challenge to begin with. I love a challenge, and I love their overly energetic ways and their adventurous ways. So it's a challenge for me to keep up with them. And the more ways I can entertain them and give them outlets to sow their wild oats, basically, to exercise, to explore their instinctual traits, the happier they are and the more content they are. So what happens is, I'm just going to pull her up. There she is. She's just trying to find a comfortable spot. We usually don't sit this close. I've got our sofas at our house, of course, where she'll lay next to me. I've got some dog beds on the sofa, but we're trying to keep her in a smaller space here just to keep her on camera so you can really appreciate her personality. That's such a cool thing about Huskies, too. Most all dogs have individual personalities. I mean, they all do. You can stereotype them certain ways, like Huskies being independent and Huskies being a little bit of a nightmare sometimes, especially when they don't get the proper exercise outlets, the proper adventure, challenging their senses, their traits, etc. So again, that's why I share everything. So this particular bike, I'm calling it the Speed Shark right now. I've actually had it with Lola and Nikita before. They've been on it with previous generation of Huskies, with Chase and Jag. So not the whole generation, because at the point I had gotten this particular bike that I modified, Unfortunately, that generation, like Princess and Zorro, had crossed over Rainbow Bridge. So what you might first recognize here are different harnesses. So everybody always says to me, well, Wolf Driver, why don't you use joring or dog powered sports harnesses? No, Lo. She wants to jump off. Come on, good girl. Sit down. Good girl. Be a good girl. So that's one thing with the Husky. They are very independent, as I mentioned. So they want to, she's like, I've had enough of sitting here, Dad. I want to do my own thing. But I want her to stay here because we're in studio. I don't want her to get in trouble anywhere else. And she's happy with me. She just wants to spread out a little more. And Huskies are antsy. They want to explore. They're curious. And that's, again, another reason we got to keep them challenged in some ways, no matter how lazy you might think your Husky are. Because there's some people that have, Lola would be a lazy Husky if I let her. So, and she gets plenty of rest time, believe me. But exploring is usually what they want to do, being curious, etc. So these harnesses are giving the dogs a chance to exercise in a different way, a way that more people are used to, believe it or not, because it's more of a traditional sledding harness. Again, it's called dog powered or joring sports. So this is they're called nonstop dog wear, and that's the manufacturer. And this is called their free motion harness. I really like this design. It's adjustable to a certain extent, and the way they're sized, it's important to get the right size because you won't get it off your dog if you don't. Getting it on is no problem usually, even if it's too small. Getting it off is a challenge because you got to bend their front paws in a little bit of an awkward position, but there's a couple buckles that make them a little bigger so they can more comfortably get out of them. Getting them on is easier. So all harnesses can be very challenging for people to put on. And that's why it's a good idea, I recommend, for people to get a stuffed animal about the size of your dog or somewhere close by and practice putting a harness on before you attempt to put it on your dog so you can get a feel for it and understand how the different buckles work on it, how the fit is, etc. Fitting a harness is a bit of an art. So what we're doing, because we're not doing any competitions, this is all strictly for dog entertainment and recreational adventuring, basically. So I don't have exact fits on harnesses. Usually my harnesses are size, small, medium, large, extra large, etc. And okay, we're just pointing the mic down, sorry. And so because we don't have to be as exact with what we're doing, people that are racing dogs and are doing professional sled dog operators will get them. They'll do exact measurements on the dog. So we don't have to be that precise with dog moto sports, dog powered sports in the capacity that I'm doing them in, and probably that a lot of people are watching this are doing them in. So another thing you'll notice, which might look awkward to you, because, especially if you don't know sled dogs, they're attached in two places. And this is one of the coolest aspects, that we can attach them on the rear of the harness where they're pulling from. So they're using their whole body. I like to say the longer the harness goes on the dog, the more they can engage it, the more they can pull, the more they can use their whole body. So a lot of times I'm using halfback, what people call halfback harnesses, more of a utilitarian harness, because they're not pulling. They're not going to get the leverage or the range of motion that they're going to get on a dog-powered sport or a joring sport, they call them, as we're doing here. So with this harness, I'll use what they call a non-choke, or they call them pro non-choke collar some places. They're basically sled dog collars. They're kind of similar to a martingale collar. And for me, martingale collars will double for that. If you're not familiar, a martingale collar will tighten on the dog, but it won't. You can put fingers between it. You don't want it touching their throat at all. But it's enough to keep them straight and keep them true so they can't deviate from the harness. They use them on sled dogs, and they'll usually put two dogs, usually when you have a parallel sled dogs, you have a line on each side. That's the most common setup. And when they're hitched like that, the dogs will be connected to each other through a neckline a lot of times, and evenly matched dogs, because sometimes they'll put too fast of a dog with a slower dog, and that creates a problem because that'll frustrate the dog. By the way, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to ask them. Lola might try to answer them. I'll try to answer them. We've got one here, my producer's telling me, And right here from Jeremy Brinker, Huskies are the greatest, Jeremy said. And I couldn't agree with you more. That's my breed of choice, if you will, because again, of their endless energy and their just overall personality fits me, their adventurous lifestyle. But a lot of people don't understand. They see Huskies and they think that they're striking looks. They're so beautiful. They're unbelievable looking puppies. And then they want to get them, of course, adopt them because of these looks, the cuteness, the fluff balls that they are. And then after a few months, their looks, I'm not going to say wear off, but you're like, oh yeah, I love my husky. He's beautiful or she's beautiful. But what do I do with it now? I mean, because they're a ball of energy. And as they start getting into elderly age, I'm talking just getting out of puppy stage. Puppy stage is cool because a puppy can wear itself out and go to sleep for a while. But when they get more towards adult, this energy becomes more and more prevalent in them or apparent. And then it becomes harder to satisfy it. With a puppy, you can satisfy it easier because they're not full-grown dogs. Lola's like, Dad, what are we doing here? And therefore, people hit the reality, like, what can I do with the dog? She or he is not trainable. They're pulling my arm socket out on the leash. They're escaping the property. If you crate them, they're escaping the crate. And they're digging holes. And they're doing this and they're doing that. Good girl, Lola. Good girl. So that's why a lot of them are unfortunately abandoned or surrendered. So I like to, again, I'm trying to educate everybody. So people that are thinking about the Husky breed, deciding if it's right for them, because it's a good fit for a lot of people, usually on the active lifestyle. With the way I do it, you don't have to be necessarily as active because dog motorsports makes it possible for even people with limited mobility to get on an electric bike and take the dog out for a ride, take the dog as where they want to go, get some of that exercise, go as fast as the dog wants and as far as the dog wants, because you just got to push the throttle. So Huskies are the greatest thing in the world. God's greatest gift are dogs to me, besides my wife and my family. And to me, the Huskies just is the perfect example of that. So we've got another question or comment here. So from Haley Stevens, good morning, everyone. Oh my goodness, I love the special guest today. Yes, thank you so much, Haley. Good to hear from you. So I know Haley's on Wolf Driver a lot. I really appreciate your support and your questions and comments. We got Lola here, and Lola's she's a little bit bigger than an average Husky. She's probably a little big boned, I call her. Because she's that couch potato at home. She doesn't get the exercise unless I give it to her. So even with all the exercise we do, she could stand to lose a couple pounds. So she's about 62, 63 pounds, and she should be more like 60, maybe a pound or two less. Thanks, Haley. Great to hear from you. So on our next one, we've got from Larry P. I like that. Those dogs are happy running. Thanks so much, Larry. I truly appreciate it. They are really their happiest. And I go back to it. My first Husky I got, Czar, back in 95. All white Husky with blue eyes, like Lola has the blue eyes. And it was like, I got him, loved him, fluff ball. My wife and I were like, we just loved him. And then he ate the wall. And then he pulled her arm out of her socket, basically. She couldn't walk him. And then he became resource guarding. I mean, he got a lot of issues because I know nothing about dogs. And then I found a bike with the proper attachment I could safely ride him on. And then all of a sudden, he became the best dog in the world. So, yeah, they need some energy outlet. I mean, there's dogs that love to play fetch. But fetch with a Husky is great, but it's not, if they like it, they usually get bored with that quick. Their mind, they're always thinking. They want to keep pushing the envelope. And if they get bored, the fetch game usually wears off with them quick if they engage, and they still got all that energy. So running them is one of the best ways you can give them an exercise outlet. So thanks so much for that. Do we have another one, Rod? Okay, so we got another comment here. And this is from Lucky. My band dog is the best breed English Mastiff mix and American Pit Bull. Loving, kind, loyal, second strongest bite in the world. Can't get any better than that. There are so many great breeds out there. And when you get into working breeds, and that's obviously a Husky is a working breed, it's incredible. The human mind or the human brain can't fathom what some of these animals, any animal, is capable of. Working animals, etc., survival animals. I guess they're all survival, but athletic animals, maybe. I mean, when you realize a Husky in particular, sled dogs can go 100 miles a day. So, talking about a dog like he's got, the mixed dogs are great too. I mean, most sled dogs are mixed breeds now because they try to find the best traits in each dog. And sometimes you'll see a sled dog with a coat on. You'll be like, why does they need a coat? Because to be out in that cold, they might not have the hair like a Husky, but they have other traits, and the position on the sled dog team is where they want to put them. But yeah, it's so great, like Lucky was saying, to find a dog that matches your personality, or a breed or a mixed breed that can match your personality to get your lifestyle, and then you can better create your bond and do the activities or do the adventuring or live life in harmony, basically. So thanks so much for your comment. I really appreciate that. So back to what we're doing on the screen there. Lola's just being so good, isn't she? She's a good girl. I call all my bikes and all my rigs basically electric dog sleds on wheels. Sorry, we've got another comment here, and I'll break into the show and always address the comments. Larry P, are all sled dogs Huskies? Great question, Larry. I really appreciate that. So all sled dogs are not Huskies. In fact, most today, back years and years ago, there's a question. Well, when did sled dogs start? When did people start using dogs for transportation? Basically, well before cars. Thousands of years ago, it's speculated. Some people say that's true. It's not true. That's an ongoing discussion. But today, and Huskies were the main sled dog breed. Today, they take a conglomerate, almost like a mixed breed, and use all the best traits. Huskies in there to make the best sled dog because they're looking for racing and they're looking for these long distance runs like the Iditarod, et cetera. So they're going to do a combination. And of course, mankind always has to mix in there and find the best aspects of all these different dogs to create basically a mutt that becomes a sled dog. So I've been on sled dog expeditions, and none of them, almost none of them look like Huskies. I'm like, what happened? So great question. Thank you so much. And we've got another question here. Good girl, Lola, as Lola chills, from Jeremy Brinker. I appreciate what you're doing with them. It's great to see them and people in the world interacting, as well as the dogs enjoying being dogs and enjoying all the news scenarios. And that's so true. And that's exactly what I do. I really try to expose them to as many people, as many trails, as many experiences as I can. Thanks so much for your comment. I do really appreciate that. And appreciate that you appreciate it and understand it. Because I get a lot of people out there that think what I do is cruel. I mean, that's how society is, especially, with the internet, social media. Everybody sees something and they become an armchair expert, even though I'm sitting in an armchair. But listen, even me, who knows everything about what I'm doing, or I think I do in a lot of ways, I can always learn, and I do always learn. A lot of times I'm learning from my Huskies. From Husky to Husky, different things change. I mean, like I talk about individual personalities. There's so much individuality. Even though we stereotype them all together, there's little nuances. Sometimes there's big aspects that separate from dog to dog. And I've experienced so many different Husky personalities that I love finding a way to accommodate them all and make them the happiest dogs possible. So even for the dogs that aren't as athletic, and for the dogs that are more athletic than I imagine, and I've got a couple of them right now, partially because they're not spayed yet, but they will be. So that's what makes it so cool, though, and that's again my personality, trying to figure out a solution for every situation that we're into, and for every dog to make them as happy as can be. So right here, I got my knee brace on, so you can almost see how low. It doesn't give you a good perspective, but I mean, this bike is like 6 inches off the ground at its lowest point, probably. So I describe it as being a huddle, basically, and I'm in the middle. So it's actually one of my happiest places because all the dogs are surrounding me, and I can evaluate each dog on an individual level when we're riding what I call this bike the Speed Shark. So I can see each one, how they're performing. And yesterday, you'll see this, not watching the video close enough, but we were running at just about dusk. So it was really, Lola's like, I want to get up, Dad. Stay here, Booby. Stay here. Good girl. So at that time, I call it dark 30, where the deer start coming out, the nocturnal animals start making their way out. And that really, at that time of night, it really gets the dogs' engines rolling because they are actually getting, they can sense everything going on. And as Jeremy was just saying, with different scenarios, it really excites them. So dusk starts to, the sun starts to set, dusk is coming in, and all the animals are coming out. And they're like, wow, they can smell that. I mean, their nose is incredible, as you know, with the dog. So they can tell the story of what's going on long before we know it, if we ever know it, because we don't see it, we usually don't know it. And that's what happened there. Yeah, I'm not watching close enough because we're doing the podcast here, but we get a couple herds of deer. I mean, there were a lot of deer that were right in front of us, started crossing the trail. The deer saw us coming, and they were getting out of Dodge. And the dogs picked up on it, and I went for a ride. And one of the reasons I'm doing speed training here, what I call speed training, sounds really weird. It's called fart lick, Fartlek. I call it dog fart lick, Dogfartlek. It's I think it's Swedish word, I believe, and that's for speed training. And humans do that. So I've incorporated my own methods to do it with the dogs because dogs, especially dogs that do any kind of real running like we're doing here, even just on a bike, they don't realize their full potential in their mind. So when a dog can actually let loose, air it out, and go as fast as they can with a bike, they can do that. They get a smile on their face, like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I mean, it's like, you should see dogs I take on my electric dog set on wheels for the first time when we crank it up and they start going, they didn't even know they could run that fast. I mean, they're just like astonished, enamored, and in their glory. So you can see that because if you watch their expressions, and that's what I mean by being low down with them, you can watch their tongue swinging or tongue go across the side of their mouth. They say that's the closest thing to a dog smiling. And Lola in particular, because she's a bigger girl, she doesn't get to exercise that speed as much. So she doesn't use it as much. So when she starts feeling it, she's like, wow. And again, some of the first time training these dogs and training all my dogs and other dogs to do these kinds of activities, they've been wowed. And that, I always say, some of my greatest joys in life is giving my dogs or any dog their greatest joy in life and realizing their potential and being able to use that instinctual trait of theirs and all their instinctual traits really gets them to thrive. So when the sun starts to set, when the nocturnal animals start coming out, the dogs get fired up. I've always found that with my dogs and Generations dogs. And we run into that situation twice last night on the trail, as you see here. And they picked up a pace, and that's what I was doing, checking the performance level, being so close to them. I wanted to make sure that my bike was designed well. You can see Lola starting to pick it up there, and that everything was working as planned. So they're being as safe as possible, and we're able to move at maximum speed, unhinged, not worried about it. So we've got a comment here, going to address. So Jeremy Brinker, exactly. They love to run and be working dogs, as you said. What is the average distance they do per day? So we usually adventure 3 times a week. And depending on time of year, weather conditions, and everything going on, you can see this is when they're picking up the deer. They're starting to pick up the pace. And the bike, by the way, worked great. So I try to take them 3 times a week. I try to take them once on the ATV, which again, that's called dog roading or resistance. So we go to farms to do that usually, or ATV trails, usually 10 miles I try to do. And Average speed for that ranges from 5 to 6 miles per hour. All our average speeds are pretty close to 5 to 6 miles per hour. Sprinting speeds on the ATV with that is going to be about 11 miles per hour, something like that, 10 to 12, I'd say. And then I try to take them once a week on I call it dog LSD, on a long, slow, distance run. By doing that, we usually go anywhere from 10 to 20, even 30 miles, depending again on conditions, weather, etc. And we're usually averaging a pace of anywhere from 4 to 5 miles per hour on those. And we do, I've gone, like I said, 30 miles. And then I got 6 different methods. I try to do weight training with them, weight or speed work. Usually only do 5 to 10 miles most. I usually try to make it where they're wearing a weighted vest. And we do those speeds. For speed work, we can get, last night we were getting speeds of 15 miles per hour, sprint speeds, and then they'd slow down. But I've gotten 20 miles per hour tethered to different vehicles I use. With the weight vest on them, I try to keep them at a walking pace, 3-4 miles per hour, to keep them slow, so they're not bouncing as much with that weight on them. Just a little, it's just giving them kind of resistance, giving them extra weight to work, challenging them. We also do climbing. So we'll climb hills, mountains, I should say. And those could be 10 miles, average, I would say 10 miles, maybe 15 miles. And I find some really steep grades. We're talking 20% grade or more sometimes. And usually we'll go up the mountain and come down. So coming down is a little bit of a challenge too, because I'm trying to regulate the speed and not get too fast. Usually that's a walking pace also, 3 to 5 miles per hour climbing. So we got another comment. Thank you very much again, Jeremy. Appreciate that. You can go, by the way, Mush Stats, MushStats.com, mushstats.com, and you can see more of my stats there. Mush CrossFit for the different sports. So from Haley Stevens, wow, they're flying. They smell the deer. That's awesome. Love, love, love. Thanks so much, Haley. I was like, whoa, almost started getting tears in my eye from the wind. So again, I was monitoring everything. I got a little concerned because sometimes the deer, they've never seen anything like this. There are some sled dog teams that run here different times a year. So they run more on the trail that's below there that's not paved. And the deer, I just didn't want any to run into us. I've come within 5 feet of a deer sometimes, so I'm not always sure of I know they can run through a forest and dodge every tree, but with us going so fast, I just get a little concerned. So I was yodeling last night. I'm like, yodel, 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 lay, hee-haw. Can't do it real good. Don't make fun of me, please. But I was doing that to just make a lot of noise because the electric bike, I wasn't using any electric. Of course, the dogs were powering that the whole way, and they were quiet except for their breath. So I started making noises myself just to let the deer know of our proximity. By the way, there's another kind of training that I didn't mention. I call it dog spatial training. So their spatial awareness is usually incredible anyway, but the bike here, because of the close proximity, and sometimes when we go through tight spots, it's all exercise in their spatial awareness and making sure they're comfortable with it in a tight spot, especially with the bikes because they're near wheels and they're near equipment that is moving with them. So that's always a good thing too. So all of this really adds to their mind engagement and that enrichment I talk about. So we've got another question or comment here, and this is from Haley Stevens. Great yodel. Thank you, Haley. You should hear me on the video. If I post this video, you'll hear me. My voice is cracking because I'm like trying to focus on so many things. Keep in mind, I just kind of pioneered this setup. This setup to where it is today has evolved. This particular, I call it the Speed Shark again. And so it was like I'm looking for the weakest link, basically. Is something, do I have to reinforce something? Is the bike performing the way it should? Are the dogs as comfortable as possible, able to just focus on what they're doing and not worry about any part of the spatial awareness, not worry about anything in the forefront of their mind so they can let it loose, basically, and be able to air it out. And that's why it's so cool. I've got a co-pilot because he's able to see everything in a different perspective. He's on a higher bike and he's able to scan the valley or the mountains, wherever we're at, and make sure that the deer's not as close to me as possible. Actually, I told him to move the heck out of the way because he was going too slow, and we just overtook him. He didn't even have a chance. He's got an electric bike too, to hit the throttle on his bike. I was just past him. So that's I've gone 20 miles per hour on that bike. I've never, because again, I just reinvented that bike. So it wasn't, I've never been 15 miles per hour, better than 15 with the dogs. And I think the speed was actually better than that. That was measured on GPS. So, I mean, from what I felt, it felt even faster. So that was just so awesome, Lola. She's so animated. Huskies are usually pretty animated. And, they start putting their paw in the air. They start rolling all over in every which position. I used to have a Husky Zorro, and he looked like Lola. And he would actually, anytime there was snow, he would drop and roll in it. I mean, no matter where we were at, it was just so funny. He loved the snow. They are snow dogs. But he loved it and appreciated it more than the other dogs. The other dogs would roll. These dogs today, this generation, they love it, but they don't roll in it like Zorro. And even my last generation, when I had Jag Chase, Princess didn't do it. Jag and Chase did. They were rolling it too, but nobody was like Zorro. I got stuff on him doing that on the YouTube channel. So in any case, you can see on my bike, it's always important to hydrate, keep the dogs hydrated. And I know there's always questions about that bloat and what's going on. Dogs can bloat. It's something to take seriously. That's usually a mix of air and something in their stomachs that can actually cause their stomach to turn over and be fatal to them. Usually it's air and water, air and food. We don't feed. Actually, I feed when we're done our activities for the day, once a day. But with the water, they have to be hydrated, and you just have to be careful because if they bloat, like I said, it can be fatal. Some people will actually have their dog's stomachs. Some dogs are more prone to it from their build, how they're designed, or how their structure of their body. So sometimes they'll actually staple their stomach so it can't turn over, and it can't be fatal from what I understand to them. It's a surgical procedure. My vet's actually talked to me about it, but I've never really had an issue with it. I've been fortunate. I just attribute it to reading the dogs well, though, accidents can happen. So, you can't predict Mother Nature. And also because I offer them so much water all the time, they don't have to gulp it. They don't feel like they're under pressure to drink. They're constantly getting water, which I feel conditions them like I can drink anytime. I don't have to take too much in because it's that mix of air and water, air and food that can cause that bloating. So you can see my water bowls. I have one in the front and one in the back, and I'm using these Roughland water holes, and I've actually got one with me today because Lola and I will be on the road for a while. We're about an hour from my house coming up to Hanover to New Style Independent Studios. So we always have water for the dogs, like I say, and a good way for them to drink. And then we're going to the veterinarian's office, which is more towards my house. So that's another hour plus going back. And then we'll be at the veterinarian, and I just carry my own water so she can always drink. Do we have another question, Rod? No. Okay. So, by the way, here we go again. They're starting to pick up the pace. I think this is the second herd we pick up. And the camera's shaking because they are rolling. And Lola's this is the most I've gotten her to engage on the speed training I've been doing. And she's been really excited about it. And I think she's grown, well, her and Inyo, which are the calmer dogs, which are the less athletic, they're the spayed dogs, which have really benefit from it. And the weight training. They've really benefited from that. I'm on Strava, by the way, Strava. That's an app. Anyone who jogs or rides bikes might be familiar with it. It just tracks where you've been, and you can see where I've been. So I've been on Relive, which is a similar app, for many years. So I've got, 200, 250 logs of adventures we've done. But with Strava, I like it a little better because Relive does this too, but I think this is a little more accurate, Strava. It'll actually measure just your run. So when we stop the water, it doesn't include that in my average speed. Strava does it, but it didn't. Relive does that too, but it didn't seem to be as accurate for me. But with Strava, because I think it's more accurate with its GPS, et cetera, I'm able to label to each activity to what we're doing. So I just started it a couple weeks ago. So it's in its infant stages of me logging our adventures, but you can see some of the different adventures and check out the lengths I'm going, the distance I'm going, the speeds, and the elevations too. We haven't done any climbing exercises with it yet. What I call dog arc training, DOGARC.com. And but this bike here, again, because of the wheels in the back, and I don't know if you can see them, they're tubeless wheels that are just all rubber essentially, and they actually are very thin. So they're better designed for pavement. And I know pavement brings up another issue. People say you shouldn't run them on pavement. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Moderation is the key to life, and moderation and variety, I think. So moderation with paved trails benefits the dogs, at least the Huskies, in my experiences, doing activities like I'm doing with considering weights and considering pulling, considering speed, etc. And why that is because I believe it helps with the bone density. If you're always running on soft grounds, I feel like their bone density as we get older, that like muscle atrophy, some of that bone density can be compromised. And by running on harder grounds, I think it keeps it healthy later in life and all through their life. So it also helps condition their pads because it's actually kind of like you would take a pumice stone to our pads, to people's heels and calluses where we may have, and smooth them down. Well, that's what the asphalt's doing, and keeping healthy skin on them. So if you see we're making a pilot, hopefully it'll get on TV sometime soon. And we were at the veterinarian's office, and the veterinarian was saying, oh, the pads look great. So they were soft, pliable, but tough. And that's all from the training we do that includes asphalt, concrete, smooth surface training, as well as their claw lengths. So, and I'm talking their nails, because a lot of people have a tough time with clipping their dogs or grinding them down. If you use a Dremel or your groomer, you might see the dogs freaking out. Some dogs will totally freak out. And this will help naturally take their nails down. Now, some dogs have dew claws, which is up on their ankle area, if you will. And if your dog has a dew claw, of course, it doesn't come into contact with the ground. So that was, for, in my understanding, for ripping an animal open back in the day when they, were not domesticated and their ancestors survived on their own. I don't know why they still have them, because you'd think they would have evolved. Some of the dogs don't, and some dogs have them removed when they're puppies, etc. But the dew claw, you still have to maintain proper. That's not going to be worked by this, but their other claws will. And considering just one claw, if you have to maintain that, it's a lot easier than all the claws, especially on the bottom of their pads. Hi, good girl. So, by the way, I don't know if you probably how familiar you are with me, but I haven't done it lately. I still could with this generation ride the other generation, previous generation of Huskies on my motorcycle. So they would sit like this. I have a specialized motorcycle seat where they would sit in it, and a 3-point harness that was made for the motorcycle seat that would make it so they couldn't get out of it. The seat would be strapped to the motorcycle. I use a Can-Am, which is actually a trike, a 3-wheeled motorcycle. And Zorro was famous for it because Zorro would actually put his head on my shoulder. He loved it. Lola's probably a good candidate for it. The other dogs would just lay down and curl up in their bed and say, Dad, wake me when it's over. Not that they were scared of it. It was good, again, desensitizing them. I mean, I don't want them playing in traffic, but bonding with me, because it was a one-on-one activity, if you will. They didn't have to do too much, but it was also a challenge for them to be confined to that small area and have to stay still. So again, that's a great kind of training for them, kind of like we're doing here with Lola here. Now Lola's liking it because she's getting the loving on the motorcycle. I can't really pet them. That's why Zorro was making contact. Believe it or not, when a dog's touching you, just like a human touch, that's transferring some of our energy, if you will, and some of our emotions, maybe you could say. So I'm a spiritual guy, so I've spent many years in martial arts, meditation, etc. So that is just a really good way of creating a bond. So the motorcycle is great. I still have all the equipment, and they would actually wear, I don't know if you're familiar with them, like dog goggles. So Rex Specs is a really cool brand. And actually, when people take their dogs out on boats, Rec specs are really good. Sometimes dogs have issues. Riding in the back of a pickup truck, which is, I used to do that if they're strapped in properly because the dogs love it. But I shy away from it a little bit just because you're not back there with them. You don't know if something comes back there. So I'm just overly cautious. But rec specs are good for them too. They're dog goggles and they look so cool in them. And they have so many different colors. It's pretty cool. So on the motorcycles, like the dog looked almost like a pilot. The dog didn't have a helmet on, but it had everything else on. And my 3-wheel Can-Am, it was very safe. So that was really cool. So we're watering the dogs here. Yesterday, believe it or not, was a little humid. So we weren't using the sprayer. We were just giving them water on their paws because they sweat from their pads. So if they can submerge them or they can get their underneath their pad wet where their pad is, that can help facilitate cooling them. But when you spray them, I know a lot of people have seen me spray them. They ask what I'm spraying them with. It is just water. But when you spray them with water, if it's humid out, the water doesn't evaporate. So I like the water to act like sweat on a human where it evaporates and creates a cooling process because dogs don't sweat except for their pads. And that's really not as effective as a human. They emit their heat from their pads, a lot of it. And that's why we cool them by cooling their pads. But when you spray them and it can evaporate, I believe that helps cool them. People are questionable about that. It certainly is not going to hurt them unless it's too humid. When it's too humid, the air won't let the water evaporate as quickly, and it'll lay on them and create almost like a barrier or a mat and lock the heat into them. So we don't want to do that. We want to be cognizant if we're spraying them with what the humidity is that you're in, basically, the weather conditions, etc. So look, Lola, she's just trying to find a place for herself. She's smiling. She loves being with Dad. So Nikita, Cyan, and Inyo, the other 3 that you see on the bike that we were last night, they're at home right now, and they're all resting because we had a big day yesterday. Lola's tired too. So it was a short run, almost 4.5 miles. There was a rainstorm moving in. We were testing new equipment, and I was letting them go as fast as they want. So they got their speed on, and they got their energy out because when they got back in the van, you could see they were tired, and they actually laid down which happens sometimes, and that all my designs allow for the dogs to lay down in position basically when we stop to rest to do a water break. But I could tell they were getting gassed last night, and that was the design. Usually, a speed training is a quicker activity, and we can do less mileage in a shorter period of time. So if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm going to be on here for another 5 minutes or so. I've got to skedaddle to the veterinarian's office, as I said. So Lola will get her shots today that she's due. I keep them vaccinated. And because we adventure in so many different areas, if you're not familiar with me, we go up and down the East Coast. And different areas might have different infestations going on, like ticks might be more prevalent somewhere, and fleas, it might be more prevalent. So I treat year round for ticks and fleas and heartworm and all that stuff. But also, I don't know, other dogs might have been near where I try not to let them socialize too much with other dogs on the trail. We just don't know who we're meeting. Worried about confrontational issues. My dogs are tethered the way they are, so they feel a little compromised maybe. And also diseases, dogs get stuff, etc. So I try to keep them as sheltered as possible in that regard. But the dogs do get groomed in a groomer's van. There's other dogs that have been there. Other dogs and animals have been in areas that we go all along the trails we travel. So I just keep them vaccinated and protected against all these different ailments or all these different issues that might present themselves when you least expect it. I know I had a video. We were at the farm last week in the Shenandoah. We were doing dog roading, dog resistance running, and we went through some tall grasses, and that's a real treat for the dogs, and it works them. They just, again, mind over matter. They're instinctual. They just start going in these tall grasses. They don't realize it's really working them because they got to bounce up higher. They got to pull their paws up higher in the tall grasses to navigate them. So people were commenting that, oh my gosh, tick infestation, that's a great place. It is a great place for ticks to live. But with I'm using preventative right now, Simparica Trio, and I know there's always issues with um, a lot of these preventatives out there because they can cause seizures and they can have terrible reactions with other dogs and they can be detrimental to their health. So you've got to work with your veterinarian and follow what you think is best for your dog or dogs. But with me, good girl, I just didn't want to jump off and get in trouble here. With me, I find that pretty much the strongest flea, tick, heartworm guard, etc. There's a new one out now. There's a Quattro that does other worms. But the faster they kill the ticks, the less likely the dog, because the dog gets bit, will get a tick-borne disease like Lyme's disease, God forbid, and there's a lot of other ones. My dogs, even with, I don't know if it was with Simparica, it was one of these all-in-ones, heavy dosage treatments. What I mean by that is one of the more prevalent brands out there, and my dogs still had gotten tick diseases because some of the ticks can evade it. And I've read where the longer some of these, I don't know if they changed their formulas, some of these brands are out there. Interceptor I used to use, been around for a while. Some have said that the ticks and fleas, whatever, can start to become immune to it because everybody uses it and it puts it into the ecosystem, and the ticks actually become immune. I don't know if that's true, but the new one out there, I forget the name. I'll try to remember it and put it in the comment section. I haven't tried it yet. I'm still evaluating it, just reading up on it, talking to veterinarians, etc. Is supposed to kill the ticks quicker because you want to get that to prevent them from still biting the dog, even though they die, infecting the dog. So that's important to keep in mind. But what I was talking about, this looked like a perfect breeding ground, which I'm sure it was for ticks in the Shenandoah Valley when we were doing our dog resistance dog roding running last week. And believe it or not, the dogs got groomed 2 days later on that Friday, and the groomers were like, we didn't find one tick. Usually they'll find a lot of dead ticks or ticks crawling that have probably already bitten the dogs and are going to die soon. So they didn't find one tick. So, I mean, Simparica is working for me. So I don't know. I'm going to have to look back on my records and see. This is from a previous generation, so that's why I can't remember if it was Simparica where the dogs were still infected. It was just a minor infection. It wasn't like Lyme's disease. I get a Lyme's disease vaccine for the dogs also. But and I had adopted a dog. If you follow me, you remember Princess. I adopted, rescued kind of her. And when we took her to get checked out, my vet was like, has she had Lyme's disease before? Because it turned, I believe, blue, the test they gave. And it usually it was a real faint color, blue, I think it was, that signals the dog still has remnants of Lyme's disease. And this might be true for humans, it probably is, in their blood. So even though it wasn't truly affecting them and there's nothing we needed to do because it didn't seem to be affecting her, it still can linger in their blood that way. So it's Mother Nature. Again, that was early, and I don't know because I didn't have her at the time. Was she on a preventative? Did she have a Lyme disease shot? She was in a different part of the country. She was from the New England area. I'm in Maryland. We're in Maryland. So, again, different areas and different times of year and different years might have certain stronger infestations of certain insects, ticks, whatever, fleas. So it's important to constantly keep them updated on vaccines and preventatives as much as possible. Now, as they get older, it's said, which may be true, some of these vaccines may not be needed because the dogs have already built up the immunity with them. So they call it pulling blood titers. So I haven't done that ever. I'm considering asking the veterinarian about that. I know people that have done that, and that just tells them if there's enough resistance in their blood, enough immunity that they won't need to actually retreat them, revaccinate them. Because if we don't have to, why give them extra vaccines? So that's just food for thought there. And we hope to actually have one of my veterinarians, one of my dear friends from many years ago, but he's a vet. He's retired now, but he still does some surgeries and some specialty conferences and lectures, and still will see certain clients, I believe, on the show. So if you're interested, you can ask him questions. And he's just been around the world a million times with dogs. And his first dog was a Husky. So He's got a special place for Huskies in his heart, which always makes me warm and fuzzy. So Lola and me are getting ready to sign off. If you have any questions or comments, Lola's like, yeah, Dad, where are we going next? Can we stop at McDonald's drive-thru and get a hamburger? I don't do that. I know there are people that are. They eat a raw frozen diet. I'm really particular about what I feed them. So no McDonald's for Lola, but some of her food will taste similar in many ways. I hope to post this video, and I'm going to be posting a lot of the excerpts, a lot of the reels, because it was, even though it was only, I love you too, baby. Even though it was only a short run, it was a lot of adventure between the deer and the speed and the new bike and the new harnesses, where being able to wear them like we were doing. It was a lot of fun and a lot going on. I'm Wolf Driver. This is Lola. A good girl. She's just going to love it up. We're signing off. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Hopefully next week, around this time, Tuesday, is when we like to do our vodcast. But if not, I will post when it's going to be. Stay tuned on the social media network you're watching. Wolf Driver and Lola signing off.